Hey, what's up, fellow modelers? Will here. Welcome to the Ensign's Chair. So, I got another little side build going on. I started working on the 1/72nd Matt Jefferies concept shuttle that I bought from Wonderfest. And I'm working on that kind of on the side, but I've got some final things I'm having to do to the Reliant. But I had to take one step back because I don't think I put it out yet. It's going to be in the next video. Before I left for Wonderfest, my cat got a hold of, or accidentally pulled it off the table, and cracked open the seam. So I'm having to do some work redoing the seam on it and blending it back in. So it's taking a little bit of time to do that. So in between steps for that, I'm working on this kind of on the side, doing some modifications for it, which you're going to see in this video. Once I've got these modifications all done, they will be available on my Colts 3D page, which I'll put the link for in the notes below this. But I'm also doing some work on the 1350 Enterprise A. Finally doing a little more work on that, and I'll show you a little bit of that later on in this video. But anyway, so without further ado, let me put you on the bench. We'll get to work. All right, starting work on the 1/72nd Matt Jefferies concept shuttle from Cosmic Scale Models. So the first thing I've done here, now I haven't glued the nacelles on yet. These are just kind of sitting in place. But what I did want to do was get the pylons glued in place because, let's see if I can take this off. There we go. Because I'm going to need to trench these, because on the 1/72nd scale model, you don't get the openings through the pylon. It's just they're so thin that they just didn't do openings through the pylons to run wire. So what I'm going to have to do is trench a line, either probably be easier to do on the outside, and typically I like to do it where it's the least noticeable on the underside of the wing, but it's going to be easier to do this on the outside and then fill in sand rather than doing it on the inside of the wing here. So I'm going to do it on the outside, probably drill a hole through this thicker part down here to the other side, and then trench up, and then going to have to trench down a little bit, and I'm going to have to trench down far enough. Let me grab the floor out of here. I'm going to have to trench down far enough to where I can drill a hole through the hull and have it come out underneath the floor so I can run the wires to the back. So looking at where the floor is on here right now, if I take a pencil and kind of mark where this floor sits at on each side, make sure that looking at the lighting that this floor is flush on both sides. So we can see now I've got a line that shows me where I've got to drill below in order to be able to run those wires. So that's the first step I'm working on right now. Like I said, got the pylons glued on. You want to make sure when you glue these on, what I did was I took one side, got the nacelle attached, just put in place for now, because that's going to help me kind of gauge that this is balanced and even. So I want to get this glued in place, and I want to set it down to where this looks like it's even with the bottom of the hull here. So what I did was I sat on the table and just glued it, and then kind of worked it to where I thought it was right, and then I hit it real quick with the zip kicker, because I'm using CA glue to glue it together. You're going to want to use CA glue for this because it is a resin model, so you don't want to use just regular glue model on this. So get you a good resin, a good CA glue. I use this Extreme Power. I get it from Hobby Lobby, but since I don't have a Hobby Lobby near me anymore, I may have to see what I can get from Walmart, probably the Gorilla Glue or something. But any type of CA glue will work with this zip kicker. So like I said, once I get this in place, I hit it with the zip kicker. That locks this piece in place fairly quickly. And then what I'll do is I'll do the other side and just match up again with my nacelle attached, because at this point what I want to make sure of is that my nacelles, when they're in place, aren't pitched differently than the other one. So you want these to be at the same pitch when they're attached. And what I mean is you don't want to look at it from the side and have one nacelle like this and the other nacelles like this, you know, at the angle. So you can see those are fairly well lined up looking at it from the sides. So that looks good. So what I'll do is, again, I'll put some CA glue on here, get this lined up to where this looks like it's even with this. Looking at it from the bottom, should be even across here, and I'll sit it on the table and have it to where this sits flat and this side sits flat on the table. And then once I got it lined up good, my pitch on both of the nacelles are even, I'll hit it again with the zip kicker, lock it in place, and that's how I got these locked into place evenly like they are. So just my little tip, my little suggestion. That's how I did it. There are other ways to do it, but that's how I got mine evened up. So my next step, now that I've got my pylons fully attached and evened out, I can take off these nacelles. And what I'm going to do is use my router bit, my little router bit with my Dremel, and I'm just going to Dremel a trench big enough for my wrapping wire, which is what I use. Very small. Some people still use magnet wire. I tried to get away from it, just like Boyd over at Trekworks kind of got away from using magnet wire because it's just so springy. And this stuff here isn't as springy, but it's almost just as thin as magnet wire. Not quite, but unless you've got a really thin spot that you got to fit the wire through, this wrapping wire works just about as well as the magnet wire for getting through thin spots. So I am going to use my little router tool here. I'm going to Dremel a trench down the pylon, drill through to the other side, because that way I don't want to Dremel all the way around this if I don't have to, because then that's just another thing I've got to fill in and sand. So what I'll do is I'll drill a hole through the other side here since it's a thick piece, and then again continue my Dremel my trench all the way until I get below this line. And I'll do that on both sides and get my wire run. So I'll work on that, and then we will come back and I'll show you where we're at before I get to filling and puttying and sanding. Stay tuned. Alright, so I've got this first side trenched. You can see I've run my trench from where the nacelle will go. Let me focus this a little bit here. From where my nacelle will attach, this will allow it to run up into the nacelle. I've got it trenched, a hole through, and then trenched back under. That was a mistake. I went a little bit too far, so I've got to fix that because that's the inside of the hull. Although there is a cabin piece that goes in there that might cover that. I'm not sure, but that's an easy fix. But you can see I trenched it, and then I've got the hole that comes out below where the floor is going to be. So what I've got is two strands of wrapping wire. I got a black and a red because I'm going to have to do a pretty simple lighting for these nacelles because there's not a whole lot of room to run multiple wires to actually do the lights. So either I will find a little board that may work with this, or I will just use some random flashing, auto flashing SMDs for this. But what I'm going to do is take this wrapping wire and just twist it so it's braided. It's a little bit easier to work with. You can see what I'm doing here, just twisting it so it all gets braided together. And I already tested to make sure that this wire was long enough for what I needed. So there we go. Now I got a braided strand of red and black wire, my positive and negative. And basically all I'm going to do is take it and run it through the hole, and then we'll just run it straight across to this one and up. And now all I've got to do is come in with some CA glue, push this wire down in a couple different areas and get it tacked down to where it's below where I made my trench, so it's deep enough in there so that when I putty over this, I won't have to worry about when I go to sand it smooth chafing any of this wire. So that's kind of why I went a little too deep in that one spot. And you need to make sure you go deep enough that the wire will be able to sit in the trench flush or below the line, so that way when you come in here and sand, you don't chafe this wire, because if you do that, then it may not, the wire may not make contact. You may break that wire and it may not have contact. So that's what I'm doing here, is just making sure that, and I don't need a whole lot of this sticking up because I'm going to have wires coming out of the nacelle. So I just need enough wire here to be able to wire this up to the nacelle and then shove all that wire into the back end of the nacelle. So that's pretty much what I got here. And then I've got enough wire in here to run, plenty of wire in here to run all the way to the back, which is where I'll have all my power sources hooked up at. So I'm going to work on getting this tacked in, and then before I come and putty it, I'll come back and show you what I did. So stay tuned. Alright, so I've got the wire fixed in the trench, glued in. What I did was just took a little toothpick and took a drop of my CA glue, and we'll just put the drop down every so far, get this fixed in, cover up as much as I could that I didn't want to get hit with zip kicker yet. And I come with my zip kicker, hit it, lock that piece in, move up to the next one, put a couple more drops in, hold it down, get it in place where I want it, hit with the zip kicker, and just did that all the way around. So you can see now I've got that wire trenched in. And you want to make sure you look down the profile to make sure that that wire is not sticking up anywhere. You can see there that you can't see the wire at all when I hold it this way. Because if you could see the wire sticking out or puckering out a little bit, you want to try to get that pushed in as best as possible, or get it pulled back out before it sets in place, so you can trench a little more if you have to. Because if any of that wire is visible when you look at the profile, that means when you putty this and then go to sand it, there's a good chance, like I said before, you're going to chafe that wire and possibly break the connection, and then you're not going to get any power through here like you need to. So this is all pretty much set in place. So now let me grab my my nacelle, which I should have had sitting out already. But so now when I go to put my nacelle in place, this wiring will just all slide up into there. And that's how the wiring will go, and you can see the wiring sticking up in there. And the wiring will fit below. I might as well grab the floor plate while I'm at it. And now the wiring will fit below that floor plate and come out the back. So that is the plan. And I've got, like I said, I think this actually covers up, might cover up where that hole is. I think this comes up around in here somewhere, maybe right there. So that will cover up that hole. I'll still putty it just to cover it up, but that hole, that inner hole part, is going to cover where that hole is. So in actuality, you could just run it to here and run it to the back, because this piece here is going to sit in here and cover that up anyway. But it doesn't matter. Whatever way you want to do it, you're still going to have to do a little bit of a trench up and then putty anyway. So that's pretty much the plan for getting that done. So I've got to basically rinse and repeat on this side, do the same thing, and then get it puttied up and get it sanded. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing on this side. I'll get this all puttied up because you already see how the wire's running. I'll get this puttied up, I'll get it sanded, and we'll come back and take a look at it. Alright, so work continues on the 1/72nd cosmic scale models, Matt Jefferies concept. And as you can see, I've done some work getting those wires trenched into the pylon, since basically what I was told was that when you reduce these pylons in size, they become too thin in the walls. So they ended up making them solid on the 1/72nd. On the 1/48th that I got the files for, these are actually hollowed out for wires, like I mentioned. But you can see I've got 3 wires in here. Basically, I've got what I'm expecting to be a common ground. I've got a red wire for any steady on lights. So that's going to be my bussard collector, which I'm going to talk about here in a second. It's also going to be for, I'm planning on putting a nav light at the forward end of the nacelle, just like you see on the TOS nacelles for the Enterprise. In addition to that, I want to have a flashing strobe on the back end of the nacelle, and that's what the white wire is for. So those are my circuits. I've got the common ground. I got the red for the lights that are going to be constantly on, and then a white to control a strobe on the back end of the nacelles. So I've got those, that's what I'm planning. I've got this nacelle here pretty much, see if I can focus here. Nope, too much. Pretty much worked back in. Now you see a little bit here of the trench. I still got to do some more work on it. But you can see where I trenched that in, and then it went through and came in on the other side. The underside looks pretty good. I got to do a little more work on this out here because you can still see it and I can still feel it a little bit. You can see on this side where I just started working on the trench, filling the trench in on this one. Again, got those 3 wires coming out for my circuits. And you can see where those come in on the inside of the hole here to run to the back where I'm going to have everything kind of wired together. So that's the work I've done on that part. I am also working on a mod. I'm actually pretty much done with it. It seems to fit pretty well into place now. But what I did was I noticed in the Matt Jefferies sketches that he did, and I'll show a picture of this. You'll see that back end of the main hull looks more recessed than what it is on the actual Cosmic Scale Models version. So what I want to do was try to modify that a bit and add a little more detail to that area there. So what I did was when I saw that, I noticed in my search results that a CGI version done by Vance Bergstrom looked really good, and I liked it and I was impressed by it, and I kind of went off of that for inspiration. And this is the part that I came up with. Now I'm going to show you, let me show you real quick this CGI by Vance Bergstrom. And I hope he doesn't mind me using this photo, but so you can see there, it looks, I like that look. I think it's an awesome look. It's gorgeous, and I want to try to replicate that, and I thought that looked a little more in line, at least from the sides. You don't, Matt Jefferies, you didn't see any sketches of the back of it, but you do see this kind of recess and what could be grills in the Matt Jefferies sketch. So I wanted to duplicate that, and the image by Vance Bergstrom was just an inspiration for me. So I did that. I also liked, I'll show you on here, I also like the honeycomb pattern that he did for the grill on the back, so I've duplicated that. But my idea for this was to make it kind of a souped up motorcycle engine in a way. So you've got the grills look like the air-cooled grills on a motorcycle, and I know this looks dirty, but trust me, it'll clean up once I paint it. But I added in some piping around the impulse engine, just to kind of add almost like exhaust pipes coming off a motorcycle, just to add in a little detail there of my own. So I've got this pretty much ready to go. I am going to work on a light diffusion box, a light box for the back of this that'll diffuse it a little bit, so I get kind of a spread like you see in the Vance Bergstrom illustration of light. So I'm going to do that. I also added some spotlights on each side, you can see. So you get that little, when the lights are off, it'll get that stream of light coming across the grills. And once I get this painted up, I think that's going to look great. So that's my work on that. You can see this pretty much it just fits into place. I've already opened this up a little bit on the back here. So it pretty much fits into place like that, and then your top piece goes on. And it's going to take a little work to get this lined up without gluing it in place. But that's pretty much it right there. You can see this will get filled in and puttied and smoothed even with the rest of the hull. So what you'll get is this opening, this curved opening here, which wraps around the back and on this side as well. So that's my plan for that. I think once I get done with that, that's going to look great. It's going to take a bit of putty work around here to get that seam blended in, but shouldn't be a big issue. So I've got that. One other thing to note too I did on here was I drilled holes on each side because I want to put running lights on the back end. So I'll have these two running lights here, and I'll have a running light on each nacelle as well. That'll be steady on. So I've done that, and what I did was I drilled a hole straight through into the inside of the hole here, and then I drilled a hole straight down into that hole so they intersect. So I can insert my SMD in here and run the wires through, and then I'll just putty over this one on the outside here and cover it up. It'll be easy to cover up, fill in and cover. So that's how I did that. So that's looking good. I like the way that's turning out so far. I'm also doing a little work on my bussard collector, figuring out how I want to do the lighting on that. I tried finding some motors. There are some smaller motors that will fit inside of let me pull this out real quick. There are some smaller motors that will fit inside this 9mm. You basically have a 10mm opening inside here. It gets a little bit smaller as it goes back, but in the front here you've got 10mm. So I did find some motors that would fit in there. I used to have some, but I never used them, so I think I tossed them. But the problem with that is they're all high RPM motors, and there's not really a lot of room in here to be putting in a lot of the modifications or I forget what that was I used on the 1350 TOS I did to slow the motor down on that. But there's not a lot of room to stuff all that in here. So what I did was I just came up with a simple solution, and we'll see how it looks when I get this finalized. But right now, and the camera's probably going to wash this out, so you're probably not going to be able to see this too well, but I've got some lights in here, and they are just, let me turn this off so you can actually see this. Unplug it. So what I've done here is I have taken a 3mm LED and I've glued some flashing white SMDs around the outside of it. And they're not evenly spaced like they should have been, but they're close enough. Inside here you won't be able to tell. So what it does is those are automatic flashing SMDs, so I don't have to have any type of circuitry in there for it. So that means I don't have to cram a whole lot of stuff into the nacelle itself. So these lights here glued around that 3mm SMD, just inserts in there. And like I said, I'm pretty sure the camera's not going to let me pick this up, but I don't know if you can make out any of the pulsing light on this. I'm not seeing it in my viewfinder, but there is a pulsing effect. And the problem is that it does give you a rotational effect at times, and then other times it's just random on and off lighting. But I think it'll work. I think it'll work for my purpose. It's a simple solution, and that's kind of what I need to be able to fit this into that small of a nacelle. On the larger model, I could probably do something more complicated, but on this one, I got to go a little simpler. So I'm gonna keep working on that. I've got some other ideas with that. I'm currently reprinting the clear piece on the front. I'm doing actually a 2-layer method to it. I've got an opaque translucent white piece that I'm going to use for an insert. And then I've got a clear dome that's going to go over top of that. So we'll see how this effect looks once I get that printed out, and then I'll make some adjustments from there. But that's my idea, and that's what I'm currently going with at the moment. So let me keep working on some more stuff, and here in a bit we'll come back and see where we're at. Alright, so I have I've got the add-on piece for the vent detail on the back here added in and kind of roughed in. Still got a bit of work to do on it. But I'm also working on roughing in this add-on piece that I did again, inspired by Vance Bergstrom's CGI renderings. I kind of modeled this after that. I did add a spot back here though for a strobe light. So I'm going to have on the back here, we will have nav light on each side, red and green, and then also a strobe on the back end here. So that is my plan for that. I have what I did was I took my Dremel and my sanding thingy here, my sanding attachment, my sanding thing. It's my sanding thingy. But so I've used that, and I've sanded down the center part that was on here. You could alternatively just cut this out, but I wanted a little more. I made this thin for the purpose of just being able to sand this detail down and have this sit right in there. So just like that, it'll go in there. It'll fit in place. I do need to reprint this though, because I did nick. Focus this here a little bit. I did nick that back end and broke a piece off, so I'm going to reprint this But that's the detail on. You can see some print lines I'm going to have to do some work on. But it does fit right into place there. It'll take a little bit of putty, some putty work around the edges to get that to blend in. But other than that, it's looking like it should work out pretty good. So I do need to drill a hole in the back here though for this hole for the strobe, for the SMD I'm going to put back there for the strobe. But that's a simple thing. I got to reprint this though. So I'm going to get this in place, and I'll work on that. And also I am working on some other modifications for the cell here. Mainly it's got a couple raised panels on here, but I want to bring those panels more in line with what you see on the actual TOS Enterprise nacelles. So I want to give a little more definition to them, and I believe there should only be 3 of them. You should have 1, 2, 3 right around the bottom edge here. I'm also working on a modification to for lighting and adding a little more dimension to the bussard collectors on the front here. Those are printing right now, so I won't be able to show them right this second, but I think we'll wrap this up and pick back up on another episode. I do need to kind of get this done, and then while I have another day off yet, I need to get some work done on the Reliant, because I know everybody's going to be looking at this and wondering, am I am I going to be dropping down on my Reliant coverage? But I do still have some things to do on the Reliant. I've got to get the light test done on it and get the final assembly done on it. So, and I do still have some repairs. I'm still working on the repairs to that saucer edge, which is kind of why that's on the side burner, because right now I'm at the stage where I'm doing light coats of paint around the edge of it to repaint that edge where I had to do some sanding where that seam busted loose. So working on this in the meantime, and this has been kind of an easy build so far, especially since I'm just kind of roughing things in here. But that's pretty much it for this episode. I'm gonna, like I said, I got some stuff to do on this. I need to get on that Reliant and do a couple things on it. And I am also working on, I'm going to pick this up, my 1350. I'm going to talk about this. My 1350, which you can see has got a little bit of a mess on it, but that's all right. This wasn't the final coat of paint anyway, but my windows, you can see they're kind of a mess. I'll talk about that when I do the video for this. But I do need to get some work done on this and move that along, and hopefully I'll have at least three of these projects ready to go for next Wonderfest. This, and the Reliant, hopefully I have ready. So, got another year, but time's flying by already. So again, thank you everybody for watching these videos. I appreciate your support. As always, I'd like to give a shout out to my sponsors, Cass over Lake Monster Details, Gary at Mass Design, Gus over GCals, and Paul over at Paragraphics. Thank you to all you for your support. And thank you to everybody that's subscribed. If you haven't subscribed yet, keep in mind the best way to support my channel is to hit that subscribe button. It doesn't cost you a single thing. It won't even bug you when I put out updates. If you want to get the notifications for the updates, you got to hit that little bell icon. But hit that subscribe button if you find anything useful out of this, or you enjoy watching these little build series videos that I'm doing. And give me a thumbs up if you find anything useful in any of these videos. But again, thank you everybody for watching. Till next time, keep modeling.